Hey, everybody. Hey, Sarah. Hey, Ben. Hope y'all are having a great afternoon. My name is Casey Peddicord, and welcome to the Modern Sales Teams platform. HubSpot versus Salesforce for scalable revenue. Again, I'm Casey Peddicord, and I'll be your host today. We've got a super exciting conversation lined up for today. So I'm joined by two fantastic experts from HubSpot who live and breathe this work every single day. Sarah Affleck, who is an enterprise sales manager at HubSpot, and Ben Conte, senior product marketing manager. Sarah and Ben, take a second to introduce yourself. So glad you're here.
Hey guys, I'm excited to be here. I'm Sarah Affleck. I have been in the tech space just over a decade now, which is wild. And I have worked at startups. I've worked at Salesforce. I've both sold and managed reps there. I've also worked at Twilio and coming up on 3 years here at HubSpot. Yeah, definitely have both sold and used Salesforce for about 9 years before coming to HubSpot. So very familiar with the platform. So today's going to be a fun conversation.
Awesome. Thanks, Sarah.
Amazing.
Ben.
Yeah. Sarah is the real deal. She's the real deal. She's worked at both places. She knows. I'm Ben. Hello, everybody. I work on our product marketing team. I do competitive work here at HubSpot, so I spend most of my days looking at our platform versus competitors. What are we doing? What are the differences? So I've been here about 2.5 years, and then before that, I was at Mailchimp, so I've been around the block. But yeah, excited to hopefully bust some myths, and then break down the differences between HubSpot and Salesforce.
Awesome. Thank you all. And real quick, again, my name is Casey Peddicord. I'm the Senior Director of Channel Sales here at SmartBug. I'm also a former HubSpotter. I used to work at HubSpot. I've known these folks for a long time. I used to help manage partnerships over there. And I also was a former Salesforce admin many moons ago with AT&T before got into the HubSpot world. So really excited to dive in. Man, so much to get to. So let's go for it. Let's take a quick look at our agenda. Today, we'll be walking through some product misconceptions and busting those myths, three migration concerns that we see that come up often, how AI can empower your teams in a sales stack. We'll do a quick reality check on the total cost of ownership, and we'll finish with a question and answer session. So just as a reminder, this session is being recorded. Feel free to drop your questions in the Q&A box at any point, and we'll cover as many as we can towards the end of the call. All right. So here is a sobering stat. Well, don't want to start off on a bad foot here, but sales reps spend less than 1/3 of their day actually selling. And that goes without saying that is and can be a major issue if you're trying to increase sales at your company, right? Two related issues compound this. One is CRM complexity, and the second is poor data hygiene. High turnover costs, $100,000 to $200,000 per rep on average, and less than half of B2B sales data is typically accurate. So some of the real world consequences that we see when teams are bogged down by complex CRMs are frustration, burnout, attrition, the list goes on and on. And so when it comes to the data quality or the lack thereof, basically in equals bad data out. So bad data really does impede the accuracy of AI outcomes and also forecasting. So let's get into it. Let's start with myth busting. We're going to tackle some of the biggest product misconceptions we hear about with Salesforce and HubSpot. So myth number one, Salesforce has more advanced sales tools. That's a common assumption that we hear with sales leaders. Sarah, when you talk with teams that are evaluating CRMs, how do you address that perception?
Yes, there's a couple of different things. When I think about more advanced sales tools, to me, it's more about what do you need as the manager? What do you need as the rep? One of the things that people often don't realize with HubSpot is that out of the box, we include a sales sequencing functionality. Think of your classic sales cadence, with SalesLoft or Outreach. They're incredible platforms. We include that in our Sales Hub license, or Calendly Outreach, your calendar functionality. That's also included. I like to think of HubSpot as everything that you need in that sales seat ready to go. So your CRM, your sales engagement, and your calendar. So where people think we might not have that more advanced sales tool, it might just be that we took that single tool and we made it simpler for your rep to use.
Yeah. And when you're talking specifically to sales leaders, like what do you usually find when they're comparing those tools with HubSpot? And also like how do they react when they see like HubSpot delivering those advanced capabilities without, I'll call it the extra complexity?
I would say that what's funny is most folks just aren't aware of what we offer. Like, I think that that's often what we're fighting. It's not necessarily like feature by feature were better or worse. It's that folks truly didn't know that HubSpot offered a lot of our functionality. Sales leaders' minds are blown. That's one of the things that I love about demoing our platform. Shameless plug, if anybody here just wants to see HubSpot, I'm happy to walk you through it. But I think that that's the biggest thing. And then on top of it, the reps are really excited because they're not worried about things breaking. The hardest part about having different tools is you might have the best in class tool for cadencing and sequencing, or the best in class tool for your CRM. But if those two tools aren't working together and they're not in sync, maybe you change one thing on one tool, but it breaks the integration. And then it doesn't matter how many emails you sent. If it didn't happen in the CRM, it didn't happen. So I've just seen a really positive feedback loop from managers who are hearing from their reps, hey, nothing's breaking. It all just kind of
Yeah,
works.
absolutely. So true. Ease of use in there. Let's jump to myth number 2. Salesforce is the only option for complex sales processes. I think it's often seen as the only platform that can truly scale, especially when you get into the enterprise space. The idea is that Salesforce is built for enterprise scale, while HubSpot can't match that sophistication. Ben, what do you say to sales leaders who assume HubSpot can't support that enterprise level complexity? And also, how does HubSpot prove itself in those situations?
Yeah, I would say Salesforce, they're a great brand, great business. They serve a lot of big companies and they've done a great job marketing themselves and branding themselves as the, number one CRM for enterprise, and some of the largest businesses in the world use them. And then I think that kind of crowds out a lot of the other alternatives that are out there like HubSpot that are really powerful software. And I think the number one thing I think about here is like the trade-off between configurability and usability. So Salesforce, again, some of the largest businesses in the world, we're talking like hundreds of thousands of employees, business units all over the world. And you need that really customizable, in-depth configurability for every little aspect of your business. And the software is very powerful, but with that comes that trade-off in the ability to use the platform, get your sales teams engaged and easily, into the platform using the tools. So I would say that's probably like the big overarching narrative. And then I would say another thing is like actually test the products. Sarah and I were talking about this the last time we did a webinar about marketing, but kick the tires and think about what actual customizable or scalable features do you need for your platform. And it's likely that HubSpot has them. We have a ton of customizability like custom deal stages, pipelines, reports, dashboards, page layouts. We just launched a new developer platform so you can build custom apps and UI extensions within HubSpot. Just a ton of stuff that I think a lot of people just aren't aware that HubSpot has.
That's awesome. Let's jump to myth number 3. Thanks, Ben. This is the one that almost always gets the CFO's attention. I think about the belief that Salesforce could possibly be a cheaper option. At first glance, the sticker price might look that way, but then once you dig in, the real costs really start to pile up pretty quickly. So, Sarah, question for you. When companies dig into the numbers, what hidden costs tend to surprise sales leaders, which tend to surprise CFOs? Like, as they calculate the true hidden cost of ownership, like, what does that look like?
So I will just never be get over this concept Salesforce is cheaper, because I remember when I was selling there, when I was leading reps there, all we ever thought is we are so expensive. Like, that's where we lose. We're so expensive. So we would lead with these crazy discounts, 30%, 40%, 50% off out the gate at Salesforce. And so I think that that's when people say cheaper, that's often what they're meaning. I was actually just at lunch with a friend here at HubSpot in the Boston office who said, he was like, yeah, I just did an evaluation against Salesforce and they came in at 3 times less the price of ours. Like, we were 3 times more, and the customer's going with us because of the value and because of the usability. So a couple of different things to keep in mind. And this is what he and I actually talked through when he was convincing this customer to move forward. One, with Salesforce, out of the box, free support is not handed to you. Support is typically an added on for Premier support. It's added on like a 30% to your contract. So every time you add a license, your contract also goes up for support. With HubSpot, we offer free support. throughout the lifetime of your contract. And it's not just email with somebody international, which is great. But when you're frustrated, you want somebody quick, you want them to understand you. And sometimes you just want to get on the phone. And then the next thing is the admin functionality. So HubSpot is designed not to need an admin. You might want an admin to manage the back end of your system, but you can get up and running. Anyone can be your HubSpot admin. So I think that when you think about, we also considered earlier those added-ons of like the calendar functionality and the sales sequencing functionality. So most of the customers I talk to, they're using something for calendar. That's an extra $100 a month. They're using something for sequencing or cadencing, 100, 150 a month. And then they're using a CRM, 100, 150 a month. Imagine all that's in one single license. It sounds too good to be true, but that is truly HubSpot's Sales Hub.
Yeah. I think of it too, like I've sort of, in working on both systems for a long time, I compare them as like a bridge, right? If you ordered, like, it's like if you went to Amazon and ordered a bridge, two bridges, and you got the two bridges delivered to your house. Salesforce will come in a big box. You open the box, it's a big bunch of sticks. You can make it whatever you want, right? But you got to build it. And it's not, you can't walk across that bridge the same day. It may take months and months to get to where you can walk across that bridge. HubSpot, when it gets delivered, you open the box and you can literally walk across that bridge tonight if you wanted to. If you wanted to send an email tonight or set up your sales email tomorrow. And you can still paint the bridge, you can still configure it, do all kinds of fun stuff to it, make it really configurable and custom. But you can use it right out of the gate. There's not a whole lot of stand up there. So thank you, Sarah. So much insight there. That was awesome.
Yeah.
So go ahead. Were you gonna say something else?
Yeah, I was just going to say one more thing that just made me think. I think also the partner process. Like, I think most folks don't consider the total cost of ownership, and that's anybody who's evaluating both solutions, right? Salesforce is incredible. HubSpot is incredible. I think look at the total cost. Look at the cost to go through that partner ongoing implementation and timeline of that. To your point, Casey, how long does it take for you to be able to cross the bridge? And then also think about the HubSpot total cost of ownership. Is it 10K to get stood up versus 100K?
Yeah. And a lot of times in partner world, because I live and breathe this all day, every day, especially from a Salesforce to HubSpot comparison, that Salesforce side usually is more of a land and then expand type number. And that sometimes gets that pre-assumption that we were talking about earlier around maybe Salesforce a little bit cheaper. A lot of times that partner is evaluating it as, hey, here's the initial build, but then there's also 2x, 3x, 4x, 5x, 10x behind the scenes that's coming next. Whereas in HubSpot partner world, usually quite a bit different. It's usually, hey, we can do everything from a consulting all the way to full on white glove, but it's always trying to encapsulate that into the project up front versus just a, hey, let's get you in and get you going and then charge more down the road. Perfect. So we've walked through the myths. The next question sales leaders usually ask is, all right, what about the migration? How do we get the data in there? Isn't that where everything falls apart? And I think that's a fair concern. We do hear that often. I think the fears usually fall into like three main buckets. One is we'll lose data. Two is the team won't adapt or adopt the new system or adapt to it. And third would be like the transition will disrupt sales. So Sarah, let's tackle this fear head on. For a company that has been running on Salesforce for years, what does a typical migration to HubSpot actually look like from a high level? And how should sales leaders think about the process?
Yes. So I would say one of the best parts about HubSpot is we are one of the easiest platforms in the space to integrate with our open APIs. So migration is very easy. As long as that company that you're pulling the data from is easy to get out, we are very easy to pull that data in. I also would think about the partner that you're choosing. So one of the reasons we love working with SmartBug or any of our certified partners is that word certified comes in. We require every partner that we work with to be certified on HubSpot. So we ensure that whoever you're pulling data from is setting it up correctly within HubSpot so that you're not losing that data. So I think that that's a big way you can make sure nothing's falling through the cracks.
That's awesome. One of the biggest fears that we hear is our team won't actually use the new system. Ben, why do you think adoption is such a sticking point in CRM decisions? And also, like, what have you seen in terms of how sales teams respond once they do get into HubSpot?
Yeah, I know adoption is like the biggest, hurdle to software. Like it's, you're buying software that you're spending a lot of money on. So you want to make sure you're getting the value out of it. You're not going to get the value out of it if people aren't using the software. I totally understand that. And change management is hard. Training is real. You want to make sure you get your reps in there and trained. And I think back to what Sarah said, HubSpot is really one of the most powerful yet easy to use platforms in the space. And I think it's really intuitive for sales reps to learn. And then the other thing I think is that we have a great academy for training your new reps on how to use HubSpot. It's instructor led. There are videos, example exercises. It's all self-paced. We have a great community online that answers a lot of questions around how to do specific things. Partners, customers, you can come to our annual inbound conference and meet customers in person and have live training and stuff like that. And then the other thing is AI is making everything even easier. So I think this is probably true just with software in general, but it's especially true with HubSpot. We've got our Breeze Assistant inside the platform. This is going to be included in your license. And one, it can help you learn how to do things. So it'll actually pull from our academy. So if you're like, I don't know how to do this, your sales rep can just ask Breeze Assistant. It'll pull from our academy and show them how to do it. Or we're building out more and more features and functionalities to just ask Breeze to do it for you. Like, hey, can you update this CRM record? Can you add this contact? Or with the Chrome extension, you can take our Sales Hub Anywhere Chrome extension across the web. And if you're browsing like prospecting data on the web, you can automatically add that through the Breeze Copilot on the browser. Super easy. So I think, yeah, overall training, change management is hard, but HubSpot's super intuitive and AI is making everything easier. And we've got great training.
Yeah, on bullet point for fear is of the adoption there that reps, I think about reps won't change their habits. Ben, from a sales leader's perspective, how does HubSpot's design help drive adoption, and what does that mean for sales reps on a day-to-day basis, like a day-to-day workflow?
Yeah. So one of the cool things is like the sales it's called Sales Workspace. It used to be called Prospecting Workspace inside HubSpot.
Yeah.
But it's that single page where it's going to bring together all your tasks, your calendar, your deals, all that into a single pane and give you recommended actions on, hey, here's the top priority items you need to be thinking about and some recommended next best actions for you to keep moving on your pipeline. So I think we've done a lot of things to make the design of it really intuitive for reps to think about, what's the next best thing I can be doing to drive the business forward. And I think, the change management, like, we try to make it as easy as possible, but ultimately change is like a reality that we all have to deal with. And I think HubSpot, we really designed for businesses that are growing and go-getters. And I think if, you want to propel your business forward, I feel like change is part of the process and learning new tools and new systems. We're all feeling it, I think, with AI too. So I think we try to make it as easy as possible, but yeah, it's just part of the process.
Yeah, I think for me, especially growing up in that sales rep, sales manager space for so many years, I'm old. I always felt like when I use Salesforce and I'm using HubSpot, I felt like as a rep and even as a sales leader, I felt like Salesforce, I was putting in stuff into the system and it wasn't necessarily working for me, right? Like I was inputting things and it was really more for executive leadership. Whereas HubSpot, I feel like I put stuff into the system or we enter things in and it actually gives us stuff back. It actually helps make our reps day faster, more smooth, gives them better insights. Some of that has to do with the AI stuff that's evolved over the past little bit, but even some of the historical HubSpot tools, it really does feel like it's working for the rep versus just executive leadership.
Yeah, no, I wanted to call it the conversational enrichment too. Yeah, we just launched that. It's free in HubSpot, which is totally crazy. If you buy HubSpot conversational enrichment so we'll listen to your calls on transcripts for your sales calls, and then AI will automatically suggest CRM updates for your properties. So again, you're not filling out those updates to your CRM, and that's built in. You don't need to pay extra for that with HubSpot, which is a huge update. Yeah, and a huge time saver.
Huge time saver. Yeah. So a third fear that we hear a lot is that making the switch will throw sales off. I hear it all the time. People say, oh, it's our busy part of the year. We don't want to mess up our sales. So we're going to push this decision off, and they keep pushing it off and pushing it off. A lot of sales leaders say that migration itself will disrupt deals that are in motion. So Sarah, this one's for you. How do you reassure sales leaders who are worried about downtime or disruption to the business that making a move from, let's say, Salesforce to HubSpot is able to be done at any good time?
Yes. So anybody who's ever managed me, please mute your ears, but I'm a late adopter. As a sales rep and a manager, like I take a while to get comfortable and to like using a new tool. So anybody who's out there listening to this is for you. I am you. With HubSpot, I was shocked that I loved using the solution. It works for you instead of working against you. When I was leveraging Salesforce, again, great solution, but I would do my job all day. And then I'd go back at the end of the day and I'd log everything that I did. I'm a very detailed, process oriented person, so that works for me, but it took an additional several hours onto my workday versus working at HubSpot. I am working in HubSpot all day. I can't do my job without HubSpot. It's not my logging system, it's my working system. It's like saying, you know, I'm going to use pen and paper and then go back and type it into a typewriter at the end of the day versus I am typing, I'm doing my job in a laptop all
Right.
day, every day. I can't function without my laptop. I can't just like work on pen and paper. Where are the customers? So that's how I would think about it. Your sales reps are going to be shook. I was shocked when I got here and I realized half of our evaluations are driven by salespeople who've used HubSpot in the past and they want to start using it here again. Now that I'm at sales at HubSpot, I can never go back just because it's so easy.
Yeah, you hear the term, it's so good. You hear the term all the time, like sales reps, run your own business. And you get some habits like working at different places who maybe have different tools and you get into maybe some bad habits. HubSpot really does allow you to, as a sales rep and as a sales leader, to run your entire business inside of HubSpot. Like you're not having to do this other stuff outside of HubSpot. It makes it so easy to make it a habit day to day. Awesome, Sarah. From a sales, let's move on to a little bit of more of the AI stuff. From a sales rep's perspective, adoption I think is everything. Ben, how does HubSpot's AI, things like call summaries, pipeline analysis, how does that change the way that reps spend their day compared to what you see with Salesforce AI today?
Yeah, I think it's a accelerator to your work. I don't think AI is totally gonna replace humans. I think Salesforce is like talking a lot about AI agents, and that's great. And I think sometimes it comes across a little bit as like AI is gonna replace people. And at HubSpot, I feel like we take a little bit of a different approach where we're really thinking about how AI can augment you and speed up your workflow, take a lot of the mundane, boring stuff like the filling out the CRM, updating the CRM records out of your workflow so you can get back to the more strategic human-led elements of the sales process. And I think, yeah, both HubSpot and Salesforce have really great, powerful AI features. I think the big difference in kind of comparing them is HubSpot includes a lot of those built-in AI features like call summaries, deal summaries, transcripts, notes, next best actions, things like that included in our licenses. Whereas with Salesforce, you need the AgentForce add-ons, which are like $125 per user per month, which is bananas. That's more than Sales Hub Pro. That's with the sales and the AI included at HubSpot. And then I think, a couple other things like some standout features, smart properties that we added recently. So you can think about like custom AI prompts that create properties in your CRM. So you can ask a question of AI, it'll browse the web and your CRM data. That's super helpful. Data agent that's going out and enriching your data from across the web. So you can think like Clay and then bringing that into HubSpot natively. And then lastly is bringing AI and Salesforce, or not Salesforce, HubSpot into where you work with our connectors. So if you are using OpenAI, ChatGPT, or using Claude, you can use the HubSpot connector and integrate with HubSpot to basically automate tasks, get insights. And that's just another cool thing that I think we're doing to make it easy, fast, amplify your ability to get insights quickly and then get more work done.
So good, Ben. Sarah, this one's for you. I hear that people say AI is only as good as the data that you're feeding it. So when you talk with CROs, VPs, some sort of sales leader, how do you explain the connection between adoption, clean data, and the accuracy of the AI insights that they rely on?
Yes. So one of the things I've been most excited about, we recently launched Data Hub. Now, I'm not a big relaunch fan. Normally, I just feel like it's slapping a new title on a classic function that we've had for a long time. But I think that when it comes to AI, having the ability to have a data command center and clean up all of your data and make sure that it's up to date all the time Any sales reps out there who've ever had a duplicate person contact or company or a redirect or a website does not load living in your website in your CRM? To me, it's having the ability to use something like a HubSpot. Keep it clean all the time. And then when I'm talking to those CROs or those VPs, I'm usually explaining, hey, let's make sure that your data from the get-go is clean so that when you plug in AI, it's correct and it's pulling from the right information. But I think, again, this comes back to our adoption point earlier and me being a slow adopter. It's that if your reps are using the system more and more and more, and then you're keeping it cleaner and cleaner, the AI that it's being fed is both going to have your entire reps conversations, not just like, hey, I put this deal in because it's about to close. And you're going to make sure that the right company and contacts are being logged to it because you've got this data fueling organization path in the background. So I just think when it comes to AI, I totally agree. If you're using some old, burnt out legacy system that's totally out of date, yes, AI is kind of a waste of time because it's pulling from something that's not accurate. But if you're on the forefront, you're looking at something like a HubSpot, cannot recommend enough looking at the solution, getting it clean, and then your reps are going to love using it. So the AI is actually effective.
Love it. Awesome. Thank you, guys. So let's dive into a little bit of total cost of ownership here for a second. So I think sales leaders often look at the sticker price, and we talked a little bit about this, but there's an assumption out there that sometimes Salesforce can be cheaper. Ben, when you walk them through the full cost picture, are there other hidden expenses that usually catch people by surprise?
Oh my gosh, I wish I could say no, but unfortunately, this is like kind of one of the things with Compete. If I could educate everyone out in the market, I know that like I work at HubSpot, so it seems like I'm really biased, but I really do wish like people understood that like when you're seeing two contracts side by side, people think, oh, it's like the same. Like this one, it looks a little more expensive. So I'm going to go with this other one from Salesforce. But they're not seeing like all the different things that are not included in their contract. And HubSpot includes so much value in our plans. Some of the things I think people often miss are add-ons. Salesforce has a 66 plus page of add-ons. I'll post it in the chat here in a second. It's insane. You are charged for support. Sarah already mentioned that. That's a percentage fee, so that balloons as your license fees goes up every time. And you've got data and file storage. That can be a big cost add-on, as well as APIs with Salesforce. If you're using MuleSoft to integrate different platforms, that can be very expensive, especially as you scale up to the enterprise level. You've got implementation for Salesforce ecosystems. Obviously, you have implementation for both systems, HubSpot and Salesforce, but I think the Salesforce ecosystem is just a lot more complex, a lot more cobble. You have to integrate different products together. Administration, you need more administrators often. You can often save staffing costs when you're coming to HubSpot, or repurpose those people to actually do more productive stuff instead of just managing whether your tech actually works, actually using the technology to drive business impact. And then you've got training. You've got to train your reps and people how to use the tools. And again, I think HubSpot's a little easier, and we have really robust free training and built-in tools inside of the product. And then Sarah mentioned some of the sales specific stuff that's not included in the Salesforce license. So I often compare like the Salesforce Sales Cloud license is actually more similar to HubSpot Smart CRM, which is included in our Sales Hub license. So all of the sales engagement stuff, that's not included in the core sales license. That's things like calling, sequencing, playbooks, conversation intelligence. Those are all separate add-ons that are all included in the Sales Hub license, which includes the Smart CRM at HubSpot. So just a ton of things. And then don't forget about Data Cloud. That's the last thing. I've been going on and on about add-ons. Obviously, there's a lot of them, but Data Cloud is the other big thing. It's central to Salesforce strategy, and they're pushing everyone to use it. It's usage-based, and yeah, it's just bananas.
That's so good, Ben. And you mentioned training in there. It leads me towards a question around implementation. Implementation being the whole other piece that doesn't sometimes always get factored into that starting price. So, Sarah, how do onboarding timelines and cost differ when you compare Salesforce and HubSpot?
Yes. So this is something that was a big learning curve for me. So if anybody out there is doing a double pronged evaluation, tune in. Okay. So when you're doing like a Salesforce evaluation and you're looking at the onboarding and the integration costs, you're going to look at the cost of the software. right? That's what you're paying your Salesforce team. And then you're going to look at the partner. You're going to look at the partner and you're going to say, okay, how long is it going to take for me to be at the minimum viable product, right? Think of your house. You can move in, but like the kitchen is still under construction. So you're still eating out every meal. Like you're still using your other CRM, right? So how long? And then at what point am I fully up and running, ready to go? So when I was at Salesforce, we used to sometimes give away the first year for free. And I was talking to a customer with HubSpot and they were like, well, Salesforce offered us a year free. And I was like, hell yeah, like that's a great option. Go for it. But the downfall was that by getting a year free, they actually weren't going to be in the system for a year. So one of the things I told them is I was like, well, you've told me that the competitor that you're using, your contract's actually up with them in 6 months. In HubSpot, on average, our implementation takes about 90 days. Again, nuances for migrations, crazy complex integrations, or just complex customizations as a whole. But speed to value, that is a cost. Time is money. How long does it take for you to actually start using this tool that you're spending money on? And then the second thing is the ongoing integration. So if you're using, I talked about this earlier, but if you're using a tool that allows you to integrate with another tool, every time there's an integration, that means there's a potential for a breakage. With HubSpot, every single one of our tools is embedded in the platform. It's out of the box, it's ready to go, versus having to integrate maybe 3 different tools. What happens if something breaks? That's going to cost more money and it's going to take longer for you to get into the platform.
Yeah, 1000%. Spot on. So like when you look at the sticker price, the real story seems to be pretty clear. Salesforce often costs more to run, while HubSpot delivers faster adoption, stronger ROI. And at the end of the day, your CRM should empower your reps and really not weigh them down. I think about too often we see teams working for the system instead of the system working for them. So like what I was talking about earlier. HubSpot flips that dynamic. It's intuitive, it's efficient, and it can be fully integrated, right? Which means reps spend less time wrestling with admin tasks and really more time selling. What's the result? Well, it's faster execution, it's higher adoption, it's better outcomes for the business, and you're selling more, which is all good, right? Sarah and Ben, any other closing thoughts before we offer the audience some resources and then move on to question and answer time?
Yeah, I can go up first on this one. I think map your requirements. If you're doing an evaluation, get demos, test the products. Don't just rely on brand reputation. Salesforce has a great brand reputation, and I think sometimes HubSpot, just gets discounted prematurely because people aren't aware of all the awesome, powerful tools that we have. And then the last thing I would say, is you can also test these things. So like if you are using Salesforce Sales CRM today and you are not sure about pulling out your whole CRM and ripping it all out, you can also use and test HubSpot Sales Hub with Salesforce Sales CRM. And just pilot with a couple reps. You can use our sales engagement tools. We have a lot of customers that do that and then find out, how easy and amazing HubSpot tools are. And then eventually they move over in time. So I feel like, test the tools and find which one works best for your business.
Awesome. Sarah, anything to add?
Yes, mine would be, there is no apples to apples, but if you're going to get as close as possible, list out the licenses, the software. So like a Sales Cloud, Salesforce license, and a Sales Hub, HubSpot license. And then list out all the add-ons. Do we need a sequencing tool? Do we need a calendar tool? Do we need inbox? Do we need whatever? With Salesforce, they sell high velocity sales as a separate add-on, and inbox and dialer, whereas those are all included in our hub license. So put all the add-ons from a software standpoint and then compare the costs. Just don't compare a naked Sales Cloud seat to a fully clothed Sales Hub seat. Then put together the time to value and then your partner onboarding and implementation, because those are all going to be really, really different costs. Add in support. Don't forget support. And then the third is HubSpot offers unlimited free view-only licenses. So if you have any executives who want visibility into what your salespeople are doing, but you don't want to buy them a seat, those are for free with HubSpot.
$3.99.
$3.99.
$3.99. Before we get to questions, I want to make sure that everybody on this call knows about a few resources that are available to you. So Nikki will drop some links in the chat. You'll also receive them in your inbox. First, if you are considering a move from Salesforce to HubSpot, SmartBug does offer a free migration consultation. I'm happy to hop on the phone and chat with you as well. SmartBug is the world's largest, most decorated HubSpot partner. We do a ton of HubSpot work, and it's a great way to map out what processes would look like for you and your team. Second, if you can take a quick look at the numbers with the HubSpot TCO calculator, you can see the true cost of ownership and ROI. I'll also do an exercise that Sarah just walked through, really easy to do. And again, we're happy to help you do that. If you want to dig deeper, check out our video, HubSpot and Salesforce, how to integrate and when to migrate. We'll make sure you got the link for that. And then finally, keep an eye out in your inbox for the Salesforce to HubSpot migration case study or case studies, so you can see how other organizations have made the switch successfully. All right, so we've covered a ton of ground today. We're almost 40 minutes in. We went from myth busting all the way up to all the fun AI stuff and how we can look at TCO and all that. So first of all, I want to thank Ben and Sarah for sharing their expertise. Appreciate y'all's time. It means a lot to us and especially everybody on this webinar. Now let's turn it over to you all. This is your chance to ask the tough questions. I know some folks have been dropping them in the Q&A box already, and so we'll get through as many as we can. Oh, Camilla, I think it's the one around the CPQ, right? Why does HubSpot launch a product like the new CPQ when it's not fully ready and still price it at $95 a seat? Can you provide a comparison between Salesforce's CPQ solution and what HubSpot currently offers? Ben, tough question, Ben.
I know. I can talk a little bit about this one. I think one, not fully baked. It depends on what your use case is. Like maybe if you're using very advanced features, functionalities, those might not be there today. I think HubSpot has a really strong culture of innovation and continuing to develop the products. We try to get products into users' hands early, and we see that kind of as a benefit to co-develop the products with customers. And I think that's also one of the benefits of working with HubSpot as a software partner is a lot of our features and functionalities have been requests that customers have told us about, and then we build it into our platform. I think we do that a lot better than a lot of the other software vendors out there, is listening to customers and then it directly influencing our product roadmap. And then what I can say about CPQ, it's still, it's a younger product for HubSpot, but I will say some of the differences, advantages of using HubSpot CPQ versus Salesforce. Salesforce actually recently retired their CPQ product, and they're kind of pushing users to their new Revenue Cloud product. HubSpot brings simplicity, fast time to value by bringing all your quotes, billing, payments, and analytics into one tool, whereas with Revenue Cloud, you kind of have to stitch these things together and then pay for them separately. And then I think the other thing is admin independence. So again, we're trying to make things easy to use for your sales teams as opposed to making things admin burden, things that have to be managed on the back end. And oftentimes, like just Salesforce CPQ can be something that an admin specializes in on the Salesforce ecosystem. And it's actually quite lucrative to have a career as a Salesforce CPQ admin. That's all you can do. And I think that's not the product direction for HubSpot. We want to make it really easy for reps to use and anyone to get a value out of. So that's my TLDR there. But yeah, if you want to learn more, definitely reach out to our sales reps.
Yeah, and also on the SmartBug side, from a partner community standpoint, we're happy to help there as well. I think it is common that we run across that use case of helping you determine, okay, are we using the out-of-the-box CPQ tools inside of HubSpot, or there's actually a few CPQ tools that are built for HubSpot as well that are third parties, and sometimes those make a lot of sense. Happy to have that conversation as well to help guide you there. So thank you for the question. Melissa, this is not really a question, I don't think, but I'm going to turn it into a question. Melissa says, we're having a hard time getting the team to use the tools, even though I find it so easy and it helps time management. Sarah, Ben, any advice for Melissa on how she can get the team to use the tools more? I assume you're talking about HubSpot tools. I think, Melissa.
I think it's training and just showing them how easy it is to use. So one of the things that I think very few companies do well is not just training something like this, where we're just barking at you best practices and things that you can do, which is great. I hope you love it. But I think it's sitting with people while they set things up, while they try it. I head up all things training and onboarding for every single enterprise seller who comes into the HubSpot business. And the biggest thing that I've noticed is creating space for folks to pull up a new tool that they've never tried and just say, hey, Let's work through figuring this out together. So my biggest recommendation would be it's not that it's not easy, it's that there's a fear of getting started. So get started alongside them and sit with them. I'm fully virtual, so sit with them on a Zoom and say, "Okay, everybody, let's pull up our CRM of choice. Let's pull up our HubSpot and let's kind of talk through how we can use it." And then leveraging a partner, I think, is great if you want to go through that path. The third option is we've got a HubSpot Academy. They're more than welcome to go to our free academy where they can learn best practices and um, get up and running there, but save space for them and encourage them to jump in with you live.
Yeah, I think that's great. And something else that, is another idea too, Melissa, is um, in rolling HubSpot out for hundreds, if not thousands of customers over the years, we've seen having some sort of internal champion a lot of times makes a lot of sense, especially in a sales team rollout. If you've got 5, 10, 15, 20 sellers, like you're going to have some folks that are maybe resistant to that. Some of that has to do with just history. Some of it has to do with they just don't want to do it. But we've found over the years that having at least picking an internal champion like that's on that sales team usually makes a lot of sense. Have somebody that's like the first adopter that can help you, and a lot of times they can help you shape the system as well to say, hey, here's what folks are going to use, here's what folks are not going to use, here's how we should make this better. I think hearing it from a peer-to-peer standpoint versus leader-to-peer sometimes makes a lot of sense. However, you can't do it either if leadership isn't bought in. You got to be able to say, hey, this is our tool, this is our source of truth. If it's not there, it didn't happen type thing. Ben, didn't mean to cut you off. Are you going to say anything there? Good.
No.
Awesome. Kate said all of our reps work in the field and are driving all day. I remember those days. That was fun. Can they make calls from the HubSpot app on their mobile device and have Breeze record the conversations?
Yes. That is available. I sent the knowledge base link in the chat. It is possible, and do not sleep on the HubSpot app. I think we actually really do have a great application for mobile, and the Salesforce app, while powerful, it's a little clunky, and a lot of things have to be like custom setup in the Salesforce app. So I think that's one of the benefits of the HubSpot app. And yeah, the AI features work across mobile and transfer back into web. If you're like on the call on the road, making a phone call, it'll transcribe the call, and then you can get those AI generated insights from the call transcript back in the HubSpot app on desktop.
It's awesome. Thanks, Ben. I'm with you. It's kind of overlooked sometimes, and there's a lot of power there, especially for field reps. Alejandro, I hope I'm saying that right. I'm saying that like I'm from Tennessee, and I am in Tennessee. Sorry, it definitely made that sound super redneck there. There was a little bit of stuff here, but there's a question at the bottom that says, does HubSpot currently offer a solid in-app notification solution?
Yeah, I can take that one too. I think so.
He means push notifications.
Yeah, exactly. No, yeah, push notifications for app or mobile. We don't offer a native solution built in HubSpot marketing tools for that. However, we partner with a variety of point solutions that you can integrate into HubSpot for that. One of the biggest ones is OneSignal. That's kind of one of the leaders in the space for like point solutions for push notifications. And we have a really strong play with them, like to help you get started. Like we partner with them to get you set up and using all of those tools inside of HubSpot. So I think, yeah, you mentioned, Alejandro, some of the pain of like using Salesforce marketing products. It is totally bananas. You can listen to the other webinar we did about that. And I think, yeah, some of those tools being native seems like a benefit, but then there's a lot of custom dev work. And I think that's kind of some of the benefit of HubSpot is like we have a lot of those built-in tools that are really easy to use. And then again, we partner with a lot of different point solutions in the space if you want to extend your marketing, sales, service capabilities with those solutions. Yeah.
It's awesome. Thanks, Ben. Chris, man, I love this question. I'm excited to hear what Sarah and Ben have to say. I've got my own point of view. I'm interested, but I'm really interested to hear y'all's. Is there anything that Salesforce is better than HubSpot at? Is there anything that Salesforce is better than HubSpot at? What if you were to put the two side by side? What would you say? Yeah, in maybe there's certain use cases or certain verticals or certain usage ways that people use the tools that Salesforce would be better today than HubSpot.
Yeah, I can say a couple things. One, I think if you are like true enterprise, like the biggest company in the world, and you're managing a global set of like a million different business units and whatnot, and you need really specific, robust data management and separate instances for all of these things, Salesforce is a great solution. I think that's really kind of who they build for. Like that's who their target customer is. If you go to their events, they're kind of speaking to those Fortune 100 companies in the world that have just like this, they're managing business at the biggest scale you can imagine. I think that's where Salesforce is really strong. And then the other thing I would say is like they have a lot of compliance certifications for specific industries. Salesforce focuses a lot on industry. I think HubSpot tries to be industry agnostic, and we build the tools and flexibility to allow you to customize for your specific industries. But if you have really specific requirements for healthcare or for government, Salesforce focuses a lot on those spaces, and they just have some additional stuff that HubSpot doesn't have. Yeah.
I would say there are times where somebody has gone feature for feature and they're like, Salesforce technically has more features. And if you're doing that dance, you're not wrong. From a feature per feature standpoint, they do have more. However, one of the things that I typically share is I have an iPhone here. I use my iPhone for what? 3 things: calling, texting, scrolling on IG. Past that, like maybe camera. Okay, 4. Past that, I'm not really using my iPhone. And then I've got friends of mine who are doing crazy stuff with their iPhone. They're recording videos, they're building things out, they're creating apps all on a phone. They're doing their entire job on their phone. And then I have my dad, who's amazing. He's using his phone to look at photos and to send family texts. So I just think that sometimes you can have an incredibly robust machine, but you might not need to use every element of it. So I often think that feature by feature, we sometimes have less features. But usually when we do that dance, I ask, well, do you use every single one of those features? And they're like, well, no. To me, it's kind of like, well, why do you need them? So I would sit down, and as you're going through an evaluation between HubSpot and Salesforce, look at the tools that you have, look at what you need, look at what you use. And if you need every single tool with Salesforce, do it. Heck yeah. I can probably sell you on that way too. I used to work there. But if you want easy to use, robust but simple, high adoption, making your job more efficient, that might be a Salesforce. I mean, a HubSpot play.
Yeah, I think that's great, Chris. On I think about some use cases I've come across with clients over the past few years, where we will definitely guide them to say, hey, you know what, this is probably best either leaving it in a Salesforce or looking at a Salesforce type environment. A couple that just come to mind are off the top of my head. I see some really complex Salesforce setups, or even Microsoft Dynamics setups, where they do a lot of mail merge, like real estate transactions, where they pull data from all kinds of different places and it puts it into 15 different documents and stacks it. HubSpot's not the best at that yet. We're working on that. There's some cool stuff that's coming out, but a lot of times those lean a little bit more towards a Salesforce. I think the other one is, and especially for folks who have been in a dynamic space, Salesforce can do this too, where, if you want a button at this little point to say this exact thing and do this exact feature, and you're changing like the UI of how people use the system, Salesforce could be a little bit more flexible in that space than a HubSpot is. It's not to say HubSpot hasn't come a really long way. There's a lot of really cool stuff that you can do from a customization standpoint. But if you want to take a piece of paper and draw it out of exactly how you want everything laid onto the screen, sometimes that does lean a little bit more towards that. So it's just 2 that I think about. There's probably, if we want to take 20 more minutes, I've probably got a half a dozen more. But happy to chat. If you've got a specific use case, Chris, that you want to bounce off of us, happy to help guide you the right way there. My blood does bleed orange, though, because I live in Knoxville, Tennessee, as a Vols fan and a HubSpot. A few more minutes here. Let's get to some more questions. So let's see here. Looking at Peter. Peter says, so the HubSpot CPQ, is it not fully readily available? Ben, do you want to talk about that? Maybe a little bit more about how we've evolved the CPQ and maybe what's coming.
Yeah, I didn't mean to. I may have implied that it was not fully ready, but it is available. We just launched CPQ at Inbound a couple weeks ago, so it should be widely available. If you want to use it, try it, buy it. Yeah, that's available. And then it's definitely a big growth area for us, and there's a lot coming. If you want to check out the roadmap For this product, as well as all of HubSpot's products, you can go to hubspot.com/new. I'll try and drop that in the chat. But yeah, we post what we're cooking up on these products. So yes, it is available, and there's more coming in the future. So, and I would say that too with developer. I love that. Yeah, Salesforce, you can literally like. I feel like sometimes Salesforce is like you can build your own software, and I'm like, why are you even buying software if I'm just buying the tools to build the software? So you can do that, but don't sleep on HubSpot's developer tools. We also launched that inbound. So if you've had frustrations in the past customizing some of the HubSpot stuff, we've been definitely trying to work to close a lot of those gaps. So it's a whole new platform with a lot of new capabilities like conditional cards and extensions on where you can put things in the application and UI.
Yeah, if you haven't explored that in the last 12 months, it's wildly different than it was last Christmas. Thanks, Ben. Kathy said, and Kathy, we may have to look this up. I don't know this right off the top of my head, but great question. It says, she said, Chat GPT, she's using the different, I like Chat GPT. It says HubSpot service module is not IT service management compliant, ITSM compliant. Do y'all know if that's true and what aspects of ITSM are missing? I don't know that one off the top of my head. Ben, Sarah, do y'all know?
Yeah, to be honest, I'm not sure like what compliance specifically, because ITSM is like a big category. Usually people refer to it just to mean like employee facing service as opposed to customer facing service. So like when your employees have tickets and need help, that is not the core use case for our Service Hub product. You can use it that way, but our Service Hub product is designed mostly for customer facing service, but I wouldn't know what the specific compliance certifications this person is talking about. But yeah, I would just say that like I evaluate your options. It depends on what you need. HubSpot can be used that way, but it's not the core use case we're building for right now.
I would also say go through an evaluation. One of the best things I think is that we're pretty honest about strengths and weaknesses. So if you go through an evaluation and you talk through that specific compliance challenge with ITSM, I would talk through what exactly you need and the why behind it. And then your sales rep will be able to understand where that gap might be. And it might be a limitation. If that is, then I would maybe take a different route, but it might not be. So I double click into that.
Yeah, Kathy, we're happy to help on our side too and help run that down for you. Thanks for the question. I think looks like the last one, Peter. Peter says, we currently use Dynamic CRM and we have many flows built out for automation. Does HubSpot have the ability to replicate these flows for automation of notifications and updates based on upcoming contracts and renewals?
We sure do. That is one of my favorite things is that as a sales rep, I have got like you can set them and forget them. Super easy workflows with HubSpot. And I use this phrasing a lot, but we are so robust, but also simple. So our workflows are super easy to set up and use, but you can set up reminders for upcoming contracts, upcoming renewals. You could set reminders for upcoming birthdays. Whatever you want to remind yourself on with that customer, you set those up. You can easily adjust them and you set them and forget them.
Yeah, Peter moved many clients from Dynamics over to HubSpot over the years. And I like to say from an automation point of view, the structure is the same sort of between Dynamics, Salesforce, and HubSpot, right? You have objects, contacts, companies, accounts, deals, tickets. Those objects have records have properties and fields, and they also have activities. And basically you can create any sort of automation off of any property change, activity change inside the system. So it's very common to be able to take those, and it's part of our standard migration process from a Dynamics or Salesforce as well to ask you about and dive into your automations and help rebuild those. I will say with the caveat that it is common, it's a good caveat, not a bad caveat, that it is very common that folks will have to build those automations and workflows in Dynamics or Salesforce or Pardot or Marketo. And when they move over to HubSpot, you usually don't have to rebuild as many of those, right? Where if you have 100 in a certain system, HubSpot's going to do some of that stuff right out of the box for you. Now, around your contracts and renewals, yes, you probably have to build some of those out. But a lot of times we see people take large automation banks and move it down to smaller automation banks inside of HubSpot, sometimes drastically smaller. Happy to chat with you more about it, Peter. Great question. I think that's it. Nikki, did I miss any?
Think you got them all.
Perfect. All right. Well, Ben, Sarah, and Nikki too. Thank you all so much. We appreciate you a lot. Cast and crew, thank you all for the time and the questions today. If there's another question that pops up, or if we didn't get to yours, we'll be sure to follow up with you directly. Again, on behalf of Ben, Sarah, and the whole SmartBug team, thank you for spending part of your day with us. We know your time is super valuable and it means a lot to us and our families. We know sales leaders have no shortage of tools, and the priorities are always competing for attention. So we appreciate you joining this discussion about how to simplify your CRM, drive adoption, and help reps spend more time selling. So we hope you leave today with a clear picture of how HubSpot stacks up against Salesforce, and especially when it comes to empowering sales teams. So on behalf of everybody, thank you again, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.